My billionaire husband divorced me, calling me barren. My ultrasound pictures spilled at TSA checkpoint when I passed out in the airport, proving that I was pregnant with his twins. He was shocked when he found out. My eyes opened to the sterile, unforgiving glare of an airport medical room ceiling. A dull, throbbing pulsed behind my temples. The last thing I remembered was the world tilting at the TSA checkpoint, the fluorescent lights blurring into streaks. I must have passed out. Then my vision cleared, and I saw him. Killian Thorne, my ex-husband. The man who had looked across a lawyer's desk 6 months ago and told me a wife who couldn't give him an heir was no wife at all. Now he was here, his tall frame blocking the light, his face a mask of shattered composure. In his hand, clutched like a verdict, were the 2 ultrasound photos that had spilled from my carry-on. Twins, he whispered, the word ragged, torn from somewhere deep inside him. Pure, undiluted panic seized my chest, tightening around my lungs. My escape, my meticulously planned flight to Seattle, and a new identity far from the Thorns, was unraveling because of a dizzy spell. I tried to push myself up on the gurney, to snatch the pictures back, but my body was leaden. "Give those back to me," I demanded, but my voice came out a reedy thread. He didn't even seem to hear me. His gaze was locked on the grainy, black and white images, on the clear, cruel text. 18 weeks. Baby, A baby B. I could see the calculations happening behind his stormy eyes, the timeline clicking into place with brutal, inescapable logic. We had still been married. We had still been sharing a bed, though it had felt like a morgue. "Juliet," his voice cracked, and he finally looked at me, his expression a torrent of confusion and dawning horror. "What is this? How is this possible?" The doctors had been so certain. I had been so certain. For 3 years, I believed my own body was a traitor. Now, the truth was a live wire in the room, and he was staring right at it. I couldn't let him have this. I couldn't let him taint this miracle with his conditional love. I summoned a strength forged in the fire of his rejection, a cold fury that steadied my voice. "They're not yours." He physically recoiled, stumbling back a half step as if I'd swung at him. "What are you talking about?" he breathed, his knuckles white where he gripped the photos. "The dates, Juliet. The dates don't lie. We were together." "The dates mean nothing," I fired back, my tone sharp as shattered glass. "You were there, Killian, but you weren't present. Do you have any idea what those years of fertility treatments were like? The injections, the procedures, the hope that crushed you every single month? And you were a ghost. You made me feel so utterly alone in that huge, empty house. So unwanted. I let the word hang between us, watching it land. I saw the flinch, the flicker of guilt. Good. So I found comfort somewhere else," I continued, layering my lie with a bitter, convincing truth. "It's really that simple. You were so busy planning your exit, you didn't even notice." "You're lying," he choked out, but the conviction in his voice was gone, replaced by a desperate, crumbling denial. The arrogant billionaire heir was gone, and in his place was a man watching his entire understanding of the past 6 months implode. I met his gaze, unblinking, pouring every ounce of my pain into the performance. "Think about it. The timing is perfect, isn't it? You got your freedom, and I got the family you said I could never give you. It was good that you divorced me. You set us both free from a lie." The devastation that washed over his face was a dark, hollow victory. I had taken his narrative and shattered it. He wasn't the wrong party. He was the cuckold. The man who had discarded his wife only to discover she was already carrying another man's children. The irony was almost poetic. He stood there paralyzed, his eyes darting from the photos to my face, to the slight swell of my stomach beneath the thin hospital blanket. He looked utterly lost. "Now," I said, my energy spent, the fight draining out of me and leaving only a profound exhaustion. "Please, just go." For a long moment, he didn't move. The silence was thick, with everything broken and unsaid. Then, without another word, he turned. He didn't hand back the photos. He just walked out of the room, taking the first images of his children with him. An hour later, cleared by a doctor who cited stress and dehydration, I sat in my window seat on the plane to Seattle. As the city that held all my ghosts shrunk beneath the clouds, I placed a trembling hand on my stomach. "It's just us now," I whispered to my daughters. "I will protect you from all of it, especially from him." Killian Thorne thought our story was over. But for me, for my girls, it was just the beginning. Before we dive deeper, I would like to welcome you back to Mr. William Chronicles, where we tell stories that make you feel something real. If you're finding this story interesting, then you need to be here for what comes next. Hit that subscribe button right now, slam the notification bell, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Seattle didn't just welcome me, it gave me back my breath. The air, heavy with rain and the scent of salt from the Puget Sound, washed away the stifling perfumes of my old life. For 5 years, I built a world from the ground up, brick by solitary brick. It was a world built on the simple, profound truth that I was enough. My small craftsman house, with its creaky floors and overgrown garden, was a universe away from the cold penthouse. Here, the only legacy that mattered was the one of love I was creating for my daughters. The walls were adorned with their vibrant, chaotic artwork instead of sterile million-dollar paintings. The silence was filled with their laughter, not the oppressive quiet of a dying marriage. Maya and Lily, my sun and moon. At 5 years old, they were a whirlwind of scraped knees, messy art projects, and a bond that was my greatest masterpiece. Maya, with her serious gray eyes that held a wisdom beyond her years, was the protector. She was the one who would carefully wipe a tear from Lily's cheek or remind me to take my vitamins. Lily, all wild curls and boundless energy, was the adventurer, constantly dragging us on expeditions to the backyard, her imagination turning a simple shrub into a towering jungle. They were my reason for every late night at work, every worried glance at a bank statement, every single sacrifice. I poured all the love I'd once given to Killian, and all the love he'd rejected, into them. It was a bottomless well. My career as the lead curator at the Museum of Northwest Art became my anchor. It was a world built on passion and history, not stock prices and bloodlines. I found a strange, powerful peace in the quiet halls, authenticating paintings and building exhibits. I was Dr. Juliet Reed here, respected for my mind, my expertise, not scrutinized for my womb. The satisfaction of discovering a forgotten artist or the quiet awe of standing before a finished exhibit was a different kind of wealth, one that fed my soul. Of course, Killian was a ghost that sometimes walked the halls of my memory. He never appeared in anger, but in quiet, unsettling echoes. A song on the radio he used to hum would make my hand still on the steering wheel. The particular way Maya would sometimes tilt her head in a moment of concentration was an achingly familiar mannerism I'd seen 1,000 times across a dinner table. Once, Lily drew a picture of a prince with dark, serious eyes, and my breath caught in my throat. In the dead of night, I'd lie awake and wonder if he ever thought of us, if he'd finally built the perfect, fertile dynasty he wanted so badly. I hoped he had. I hoped he was too busy and content to ever look back. I was fiercely protective of our peace. I filled our lives with so much joy and noise there was no room for his ghost. We had pancake breakfasts that turned into flower fights. We built blanket forts that consumed the entire living room. We were a trio, a complete, unbreakable circle. I taught my daughters that their worth was inherent, not something to be earned or proven. I was building a fortress of love, and for 5 years it held. I never let myself imagine a future where that circle was broken. The day it happened was a signature Seattle Tuesday, a soft, persistent drizzle painting the streets in shades of silver and charcoal. I was shepherding the girls out of their favorite bookstore, their small hands clutching new picture books like treasure. Lily was chattering excitedly about the dragon in her story, and Maya was quietly studying the cover of her book on planets, her little brow furrowed in that familiar, serious way. The world was normal. It was ours. The simple, beautiful life I had fought for. And then a voice, weathered by time but instantly, terrifyingly familiar, cut through the rain and my daughter's chatter. Juliet. My entire body went cold. The blood drained from my face so fast I felt lightheaded. It was a sound from a nightmare, one I hadn't heard in 5 years. Slowly, Against every screaming instinct, I turned. Killian Thorne stood on the wet sidewalk, his designer overcoat dark with rain. His car, a sleek, obscenely expensive black sedan, was idling at the curb. He looked older. The lines around his eyes were deeper, and his face held a haunting weariness that his money clearly couldn't erase. But it was him. His gaze was locked on me for a moment, a storm of confusion and disbelief, before it dropped slowly, inevitably, to the two little girls hiding behind my legs, using my coat as a shield. His breath hitched. I saw the realization dawn, a second, more profound shockwave hitting him right there on a public street. The theoretical children from the ultrasound photos were now real, living, breathing beings. His eyes widened, taking in Maya's serious gray gaze, so like his own, and Lily's wild energy. "I saw you from the car," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I had to. Every maternal instinct I possessed roared to life. My arms tightened around my daughters, pulling them closer. The fortress walls, which had felt so strong moments before, felt terrifyingly thin. "We're leaving," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I turned my back on him, herding Maya and Lily down the sidewalk, my heart hammering a frantic, terrified rhythm against my ribs. The peace was shattered. The ghost wasn't in my memory anymore. He was here. He followed us. Of course, he followed us. I heard his footsteps, measured and persistent, on the wet pavement behind us. I didn't need to look back to feel his presence, a dark shadow stretching toward our fragile bubble of happiness. "Mommy, who is that man?" Maya whispered, her small voice laced with a fear that broke my heart. "Nobody, sweetheart," I said, my tone too sharp. I softened it, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Just someone who's lost." I ducked into the first place I saw, a small, independent coffee shop we frequented. The smell of roasted beans and baked goods usually a comfort. Today, it felt like a trap. I hustled the girls to a corner table, handing them crayons from a cup on the counter with a trembling hand. "Color for me, babies." Before I could even sit, he was there, standing at our table like a specter. He looked from me to the girls, his expression a raw wound of longing and regret. "5 minutes," he begged, his voice low and urgent, stripped of all its former arrogance. "Just 5 minutes to talk. Please, Juliet." Every instinct screamed to run, to shield my daughters from the tsunami of complication he represented. But he was here, in our city, at our coffee shop. Running hadn't worked. Lying at the airport hadn't worked. Maybe a brutal, final confrontation would. "Fine," I bit out, sitting stiffly opposite him, my body a shield between him and the girls. "Talk." He slid into the chair, his eyes never leaving my face. "I haven't been the same since you left," he began, the words tumbling out as if he'd been holding them back for years. "I tried, Juliet. God, I tried. I dated socialites, heiresses, women my mother approved of. I tried to build the life everyone expected of me." He ran a hand through his rain-dampened hair, a gesture of utter exhaustion. "But no one was you. No one challenged me. No one looked at me and saw the man behind the bank account. No one made me feel real. In your absence, I realized you weren't just my wife. You were the only person I've ever truly loved. The divorce, it was the greatest, most catastrophic mistake of my life." His confession hung in the air between us, thick and heavy. It was everything I had once longed to hear, delivered 5 years too late. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird in a cage of old scars. "It's too late, Killian," I said, my voice cold, a deliberate contrast to his heat. "That ship has sailed. It sank. We've moved on." His gaze, desperate and pleading, drifted over my shoulder to where the girls were coloring. "Please don't say they're not mine," he whispered, a fresh wave of pain etching his features. "Don't lie to me anymore. Not after what you just heard. I can see it. I'm not blind, Juliet. Look at Maya. She has my mother's eyes. The exact same shade of gray. And Lily, she has my smile. The same little dimple right here." He pointed to the corner of his own mouth. A chill that had nothing to do with the Seattle drizzle ran down my spine. "Coincidence," I insisted, but the word felt flimsy, insubstantial. The wall around my heart, the one I had spent half a decade reinforcing, developed a hairline crack. He was right. The evidence was sitting right there, coloring a picture of a unicorn. He didn't push. He didn't rage. He just looked at them, at his daughters, with a wonder so profound it was almost holy. And in that moment, I saw the ghost of the man I'd first fallen in love with, not the ruthless CEO, but the man capable of awe. He didn't give up. That was the most terrifying part. He started appearing in our Seattle life with a quiet, persistent determination that was entirely new. The following Saturday, as I pushed the girls on the swings at our neighborhood park, I saw him. He was standing at a distance, not approaching, just watching. He held a paper bag. When we got up to leave, we found it on our bench. Inside were 2 new books, a book on constellations for Maya and one on mythical creatures for Lily. No note, just understanding. He kept showing up, always respectful of the space I fiercely guarded. He'd be at the farmer's market, buying flowers he had no use for. He'd be at the park, reading a newspaper on a bench, a silent, steady presence. He was learning our rhythms, memorizing the map of our lives. Watching him with them, from a distance, did something dangerous to my resolve. I saw him, weeks into his silent campaign, patiently helping a little boy from the playground fix his toy car. I saw the way he listened, truly listened. When Maya, emboldened by his constant, non-threatening presence, asked him a question about the moon, he got down on one knee to answer her, his voice gentle and full of patience. He charmed them not with grand gestures, but with his constancy. He built intricate Lego castles with Lily, his large, capable hands surprisingly deft with the tiny bricks. He read them stories with different, silly voices that made them shriek with laughter. The love for his daughters shone from him with an intensity that was undeniable, a stark contrast to the cold man who had only wanted an heir. This man wanted them, Maya and Lily, and against my will, against every vow I had made on that plane 5 years ago, I felt the fortress of my anger beginning to crumble. The fear was still there, a constant, cold companion. But now it was joined by something else, something far more dangerous, a flicker of hope. What would you do in Juliet's place? Should she protect her peace or open her heart? Drop a comment with Team Hope or Team Caution, and let's see what this community thinks. The turning point came on a night when the wind howled like a forgotten ghost, rattling the windows of our craftsmen. A powerful thunderstorm had knocked out the power, plunging the house into an inky blackness lit only by sporadic flashes of lightning. I had just gotten the girls to bed, their small faces pale in the strobe-like light, when I heard a terrified shriek from Lily's room. I rushed in to find her sobbing, tangled in her blankets, convinced the thunder was a monster trying to get her. Maya, wide-eyed and trying to be brave, was patting her sister's arm. In that moment, trying to calm them both in the dark, I felt a wave of crushing loneliness. This was the hardest part of single motherhood, being the only fortress against the storms, both real and imagined. A firm knock echoed from the front door. My heart leaped into my throat. Peering through the window, I saw Killian standing on the porch, his coat soaked, holding a powerful flashlight. "The whole block is out," he said, his voice calm as he stepped inside. "I saw your lights go out and I just wanted to make sure you were all right." Before I could answer, another peal of thunder shook the house, followed by Lily's renewed, panic cries. Without a word, Killian moved past me and into her room. He didn't hesitate. He sat on the edge of her bed, gathering her into his arms. "Shush, sweetheart," he murmured, his deep voice a steady rumble against the chaos outside. "It's just the sky making noise. It can't hurt you. I won't let it." He began to tell her a story, a silly, improvised tale about a little cloud who was afraid of his own sneezes. His voice was a lifeline, and Lily's sobs quieted into sniffles. Maya crept closer, drawn in by the story and the solid, safe presence of this man who had quietly inserted himself into our lives. He put an arm around her too, and she didn't pull away. I stood in the doorway, watching him. This wasn't the man who had divorced me. This was a father. This was the man I had once believed he could be. The final bricks of my resistance crumbled to dust. I could no longer, in good conscience, deny my daughters their father. He had earned the right to be in their lives. The next morning, after the storm had passed and the power was restored, I asked him to stay for coffee. The girls were in the backyard, their fear of the previous night forgotten. "It's time," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "You can be a part of their lives. Properly. You can visit. You can take them to the park. But we do this on my terms, Killian. Slowly. For them." The relief that washed over his face was so profound it was almost painful to witness. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea. Thank you, Juliet." And so, our family of 3 became, tentatively, a family of 4. It was awkward at first. The girls were unsure of this new dynamic. But Killian was endlessly patient. He showed up when he said he would. He never canceled. He learned their routines, their favorite foods, their secret fears. He was present in a way he had never been during our marriage. I watched him teach Maya how to fly a kite on a blustery day, his infinite patience as she struggled to get it airborne. I saw the pure, unadulterated joy on Lily's face when he would swing her onto his shoulders, making her the tallest person in the world. He was building a relationship with them, brick by brick, moment by moment. And in doing so, he was quietly rebuilding something with me. The anger and bitterness began to recede, replaced by a cautious, fragile trust. We started having family dinners, then, occasionally, conversations that stretched long after the girls were asleep. We talked about our past, not with accusation, but with a newfound honesty about where it had all gone wrong. One evening, a few months after the storm, he had put the girls to bed. I was cleaning up the kitchen when I felt him behind me. The house was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a passing car. He gently took the dish towel from my hands and turned me to face him. The city lights of Seattle twinkled through the window behind him, casting his face in a soft glow. He looked at me, his eyes holding a universe of regret and hope. Then he knelt, right there on my creaky kitchen floor. He didn't have a ring box. He simply held out his hand, and in his palm lay a simple, elegant band, a clean, modern design that was so perfectly me. "Marry me again, Juliet," he said, his voice thick with a love I finally allowed myself to believe was real. Not for an heir, not for a legacy, for us, for our family. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for the years I wasted. Let me be the husband you always deserved and the father our daughters need. I hesitated. The fear was a living thing, coiling in my stomach. "Killian, it's not that simple. Our history, the pain, it can be," he pleaded, his eyes never leaving mine. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to let us build something new on top of the ruins. I choose you. I choose us. I'm not the man I was." I looked into his eyes, and I saw the truth. He had done more than apologize. He had dismantled his old life and moved across the country. He had faced my anger and my lies with patience. He had proven his love not with words, but with 1,000 small, consistent actions. He had earned this. Tears welled to my eyes, but for the first time in years, they were not tears of pain. I took a deep, shuddering breath, the weight of 5 years of solitude and struggle finally lifting from my shoulders. Looking at the man who had broken me and then spent months carefully putting the pieces back together, I whispered the word that would change our future forever. Yes. If that yes just filled your heart with the same hope and relief that it filled theirs, then show this story some love. Hit the like button right now. It truly helps the channel. Take a moment to subscribe to the channel and share this with a friend who needs to be reminded that second chances are possible. The news of our engagement traveled back to New York with the speed of a virus. Killian had formally stepped down from his executive role at Thorne Global, retaining only a board seat, and the business press was buzzing with speculation. It didn't take long for the most salacious part of the story: his reconciliation with his once barren ex-wife and the surprise appearance of twin heirs. to reach the one person we had hoped would remain in the dark. Eleanor Thorne descended on Seattle not with the gentle mist of the Pacific Northwest, but with the fury of a nor'easter. She didn't call. She simply appeared, a vision of icy rage in a tailored Chanel suit, cornering Killian in the lobby of his downtown apartment building. I was due to meet him for lunch and saw the entire confrontation from the entrance, my blood running cold. "Have you lost your mind entirely?" she hissed, her voice a low, venomous whisper that somehow carried across the marble floor. "You walk away from your birthright for that? And you expect to bring that woman and her bastards back into our family? To taint the Thorne name." I saw Killian's posture change. It wasn't the defensive hunch of the son, who had spent a lifetime trying to earn her approval. It was the straight-backed, unyielding stance of a man protecting what was his. "Be very careful with your next words, Mother," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Or what?" she scoffed, her eyes glittering with malice. "You'll cut me off? You've already done that. You've humiliated me, your father, the entire family. I will not stand by and let you destroy everything we've built for some common gold digger and her fatherless children." That was when Killian closed the distance between them. He didn't raise his voice. He leaned in, his words meant for her ears only, but I could read the finality on his face. "The children are not fatherless. They are mine. And Juliet is not a gold digger. She is the woman you poisoned for 3 years. Eleanor's face, for a single glorious second, was a perfect mask of stunned, uncomprehending silence. Then, the mask cracked into a sneer. "That is a disgusting, slanderous lie. You have no proof." "We have all the proof we need," Killian countered, his voice still lethally quiet. "The pharmacy records. The delivery logs to the house. The sworn affidavit from Maria Santos, who you instructed to put the synthetic progesterone in Juliet's morning juice. We have it all, Mother. It's sitting with my lawyer, copied to the district attorney's office in New York." I watched the color drain from her face, leaving a stark, powdery white. Her carefully constructed composure shattered. Her hand flew to her throat. You wouldn't. Your own mother. You stopped being my mother the day you decided to play God with my wife's body," Killian said, each word a hammer blow. "You stole years from us. You caused immeasurable pain. So here is your choice. You will get on your plane, you will return to New York, and you will never, ever contact Juliet or my daughters again. You will disappear from our lives. Or, the next time you hear from me, it will be through your criminal defense attorney. I will personally ensure you are charged with assault, conspiracy, and anything else the prosecutors can dream up. The scandal will be the only thing anyone remembers about the great Thorne legacy." He took a step back, his gaze sweeping over her with a cold finality I had never seen in him before. "The choice is yours. But know this. If you so much as send a threatening text, I will not hesitate. I will burn your world to the ground to protect my family." Eleanor stood frozen, a statue of defeated arrogance. The power she had wielded like a weapon for decades was now a useless, broken hilt in her hand. She had been outmaneuvered not by a business rival, but by her own son. The utter shock of it, the exposure of her most heinous secret, rendered her speechless. For the first time, Eleanor Thorne had nothing to say. She looked from Killian's resolute face to where I stood, and in her eyes I saw not just defeat, but a dawning horror. Her son had chosen us. He had chosen me, and he would use the truth of her crime to ensure she could never touch us again. Without another word, she turned on her heel. Her walk, usually a regal procession, was now a stiff, hurried retreat. She didn't look back. She pushed through the glass doors and was swallowed by the Seattle crowd, a ghost finally being exorcised. Killian watched her go until she was out of sight. Then his shoulders slumped, not in defeat, but in release. The weight of a lifetime of manipulation and fear had finally been lifted. He turned and saw me. He walked over, and without a word, pulled me into a tight, grounding embrace. "It's over," he murmured into my hair, his voice heavy with emotion. "She can't hurt you anymore. She can't hurt any of us." I held him tightly, feeling the steady, strong beat of his heart against mine. The dragon was slain. The shadow that had loomed over us since the beginning, the toxic source of all our pain, was gone. We were finally, completely free. The path ahead was clear, and for the first time we would walk it together, without looking over our shoulders. Our wedding was nothing like the first. There was no cathedral, no society page announcement, no guest list curated by Eleanor Thorne. We were married in a sun-drenched garden overlooking the Puget Sound, surrounded by the vibrant greens and blues of the Pacific Northwest. The only guests were a handful of my colleagues from the museum, a few of Killian's true friends who had stood by him, and Claire, my rock, who wept happy tears through the entire ceremony. But the true stars of the day were Maya and Lily. At 5 years old, they were our bridesmaids, scattering rose petals from little wicker baskets, with a solemn joy that made everyone's heart melt. They wore simple white dresses, and when they saw me in my gown, their little gasps were the highest compliment I could have received. Maya kept carefully arranging my train while Lily whispered, "You look like a princess, Mommy." They were the living, breathing proof that from our broken past, something breathtakingly beautiful could grow. When it was time for our vows, Killian took my hands. His eyes, once so full of corporate calculation, now held only a profound, unwavering love. "Juliet," he began, his voice clear and strong, "I once made you a promise based on duty and expectation. I failed you. Today, I make you a new promise, born from choice and from truth. I choose you, not for what you can give me, but for who you are, the strongest, most resilient woman I have ever known. I vow to spend every day of my life being the man you and our daughters deserve. My love for you is no longer an obligation. It is my greatest privilege." My own eyes filled with tears as I looked at him, this man who had journeyed through his own arrogance and pain to find his way back to us. "Killian," I said, my voice trembling with emotion, "I loved you once, then I lost you. I built a life without you, and in doing so, I found myself. And when you found us again, I saw the man I always knew you could be. This time, our love isn't a cage or a contract. It's a shelter. It's a choice. And this time, I'm not letting go." When we kissed, the small crowd erupted in cheers, but all I could feel was the rightness of it, the deep, abiding peace that comes when you have fought for your happiness and won. Later, at the small reception under strings of fairy lights, something magical happened. As a soft jazz band played, Killian knelt down and asked Maya to dance. Then he scooped up a giggling Lily with his other arm. There, under the twilight sky, I watched my husband, my true husband, dance with our daughters. Lily's head rested on his shoulder, while Maya looked up at him with such pure admiration it stole my breath. This was the family I dreamed of but never thought we'd have. Killian's father pulled me aside during the celebration. He was a quiet man who had always been overshadowed by his wife. "He's become the man I always hoped he would be," he said, his eyes glistening. "Thank you, Juliet, for giving him a second chance. For giving all of us a second chance. Those little girls." His voice broke as he watched them dancing. "They've healed something in all of us." As the night wound down, Mr. William, our storyteller and guide, stepped forward, a gentle smile on his face. He addressed not just our guests, but all of you watching, who have followed this journey from its painful beginning to this joyful new dawn. "What can we learn from Juliet and Killian's story?" he began, his voice warm and reflective. "First, that your lowest point does not define you. Juliet collapsed in an airport, believing her life was over. But that wasn't her ending. It was the moment she began to fight for a better one. Our rock bottom isn't where we stay, it's where we rebuild. Second," he continued, "that truth always finds a way into the light. A lie, no matter how powerful the person telling it, cannot stand forever. Justice, in its own time, will be served. But remember, the most important truth you'll ever uncover is the one about your own worth." He looked at Killian and me, his gaze knowing. "Third, and perhaps most importantly, people can change. But they must earn it. Redemption is not given. It is built through consistent action, through sacrifice, and through the humble, daily work of proving one's worth." It shone in early mornings and late nights, in patience and presence, in choosing love when it's difficult. Fourth, he said, turning his gaze outward, the greatest revenge is not hatred. It is not destruction. It is building a life so full of joy, so rich with love and purpose, that the opinions of those who hurt you simply don't matter anymore. Juliet didn't need to destroy the thorns. By building her own happiness, she rendered their toxicity powerless. And finally, he concluded, family isn't about blood or legacy. It's about choice. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you not for what you can give them, but for who you are. The family you choose will always be stronger than the one you're born into. His words settled over the gathering, a fitting benediction on our new beginning. The moral of our story was clear. Never let someone else's definition of your worth become your truth. Your value is not measured by what you can produce, but by the strength of your character and the love in your heart. As the last of the guests departed and the fairy lights twinkled against the darkening sky, Killian and I stood together, hand in hand, watching Maya and Lily, now in their pajamas, being spun gently in circles by Claire on the grass. We were a family, not a perfect one, but a real one, forged in fire and tempered by forgiveness, chosen anew every single day. Killian squeezed my hand. It's just the beginning, you know, he said softly. I leaned my head against his shoulder, filled with the contentment so deep it felt like a new kind of soul. I know. Our story is proof that even the most broken bonds can be mended. That love, when it is real, is worth fighting for. And that sometimes the most beautiful futures are built from the pieces of a shattered past. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that your past doesn't define your future, then do 3 things for me. First, join our family by subscribing to Mr. William Chronicles. Every week, we are here to always bring you powerful, true stories about redemption, resilience, and the human spirit. Second, tell me in the comments, what was the biggest lesson you're taking from Juliet and Killian's journey? And third, please share this video. Someone in your life needs to hear this message today. Until next time, remember, the life you build from your broken pieces will always be stronger than the one you lost.